friends, along with Pat Crimmins, Ray Rogina, and we're at Alexander's Cafe.
Good morning.
1650 West Main Street
Oh.
in beautiful St. Charles on a rainy day here. And you can hear the buzz of the place already, because this is kind of one of the go-to breakfast places in St. Charles.
Lots of famous patrons here today. We're not going to name drop.
Except for Max Bill.
Max Bill.
Your principal in
My
fourth
old
grade.
principal.
He walked by
Richmond Elementary.
and made some nice comments about that.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm having an omelet here and some fruit, and you already devoured your breakfast.
No, I'm watching my figure. All
Listen.
these live videos have really brought forth the idea that I
brought
need
this
to
up offline. we want to talk to Nick later on, the manager, owner of the place, and all I can say is maybe we should have just a couple of guys entree onto the menu.
Oh, I did discuss that with the waiter. Yeah, something.
What do you think what category should it fit in?
Well,
breakfast or lunch?
Breakfast, or you could call it a brunch item. It would be a combination of Irish and Italian. So I said we would need a side cannoli, and then and so I said something about corned beef hash.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
concept.
eggs. Italians eat eggs.
A little salami in there?
Some kind
I've
of
seen an
a
omelet with
processed
salami
meat
in
of
it.
some sort.
Some kind of pepperoncini or something like that.
A charcuterie board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
And they would call it just a couple of guys.
Pat and I have been sitting here for a while reading the newspapers. As you can see, we've got a stack of them here. And right away out of the gate, it's Tuesday. This will be published on Friday, so the time span is not very long. White Sox are in bad shape.
And what would you attribute that to? Injuries again?
I told you guys offline, I want to make the record clear. I was for Bruce Bachman to be the manager of the White Sox, who is now the manager of Texas Rangers in first place. The guy had 3 world championships in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so that made all kinds of sense. But no, we hire an unknown. And I'm not going to throw stones at Pedro at the moment, but this is a terrible start.
Are you attributing the start to the management?
The management certainly has something to do. Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn have been there for a long time. Ryan Dorsey had them for more than a decade. What do we have to show for that?
Wasn't Rick Hahn just last year a genius?
Not last year, that was LaRussa.
Well, no, before the season started, he had assembled a quality team, and it failed. Now, is that Rick Hahn's fault?
Well,
You had some injuries last year.
I would say this. I think Hahn did not want LaRussa as the manager.
No, that's true. That's true.
But Jerry overruled.
That's right.
And I wish Jerry'd sell the team. Sox fans don't put up with, Cub fans are much more placid when it comes to this. They put up with the Ricketts for a long time. And to the Cubs' credit, they started to feel a pretty good team there. We're going to see what happens with San Diego this week. And then they go out to Miami. But
What was the name of the manager before LaRussa?
Rick Renteria.
Why does this guy always get the short check?
The guy with the Cubs,
He was-
the guy with the Sox.
Yes, but he's a pretty good manager, isn't he?
Well, whatever,
Come on.
Hey, going to some old news from last week. It was kind of repeated in the paper a couple times. You have thoughts on this? These kids walked out of North High School the other day in protest.
Right.
I think the audience probably knows a little bit about that, but in case they don't,
Well, there was some involuntary reassignment. Is that what they call it? Involuntary transfer.
Yes, involuntary transfer.
So they took some high school teachers of some tenure, and they transferred them to, I think, elementary schools
Correct.
to become reading assistants or something. And it was offensive to the teachers, obviously, and
Obviously to the students as well.
some of the students who have those teachers
Walked out.
Yeah, it was a big
And they
protest.
came to the school board and protested.
Right. Led by Miss Robin Roberts.
Well, yeah, she was quoted in the paper, so we're not telling us something that
No. So she wanted me to be involved, and I said, "Who cares what I think?" St. Charles School District. But I'm kind of proud of the kids for standing up. That's a good lesson to learn, right?
Well, I'm never opposed to protesting, as long as it's done peacefully and neatly, as opposed to in a crazy fashion. So that's the first point. But I would also give the other side of the coin and say, going back to my union president days,
Right.
that St. Charles contract did have involuntary transfer language. Whether they have it today or not, I don't know.
Right.
But there's a process if you don't like being involuntarily transferred called a grievance that you could go through. Whether that exists now, I don't know.
It's my understanding that you're hired by the district and you're not guaranteed a venue as to where you're going to work.
Once you gain tenure, you're guaranteed a position that you're qualified.
Right.
It's as simple as that. So I got to say that there's two sides to the argument here, just to be fair.
And I don't think anybody, I'm not suggesting that they don't have a right to do it. In business, we have rights to do a variety of things, but the better course sometimes is not to do it at all. So we'll see. It's a public relations kind of a nightmare for the school administration. We'll see what are the real reasons behind it. Is it financial? Is the school district financially?
I will only say this, that I don't think the papers, the press, made it very clear as to the specific reasons other than this budgetary.
Right.
That came out by the superintendent. We had on the show here a number of months ago. But other than that, I didn't really hear too much about the specificity of the situation.
So I'm unaware that the school district 303 here has got problems, budgetary problems. But I suppose every school district does, right?
No, it's possible. We know. On the other hand, that I saw this in the paper too. Several in the Daily Herald. Home of Jim Fuller, a previous guest on the podcast. Daily Herald reported that several townships got massive reserves built up. Massive reserves. I've always said as a city official, if you have a big reserve above and beyond a rainy day fund, you should always have a rainy day fund.
Right.
But if it's way above and beyond that, that's overcharging the taxpayer, in my opinion. Overcharging them.
Well,
we rebate it to them, not putting some other program. Rebate it to the taxpayer.
I know that. I don't know if the county has decided what they're going to do with raises, etc., for the various county offices. But I read that Ms. Mosser, the state's attorney, was complaining that some of her assistants have to drive Uber, and some of these assistants are making $100,000. So whether they choose to drive Ubers or not is really not the issue. That doesn't mean that they deserve a $20,000 raise, right? I mean, so there's a little pushback from the county, I think. So we'll see what happens with that. But the county still has their reserve from the pandemic, right?
I believe they do. I'm not up to speed on that, but that pandemic money, it seems to me, needs to be accounted for, told to the public what amount is there, and then appropriately spent within the guidelines.
Sure.
Right. Hey, I see somebody looming in the owner is looming here. He's going to walk in here in a minute here. Let's talk about one more thing before we get Nick in here.
Sure.
Last night, Tucker Carlson gets the heave-ho from Fox. And
with no ability to say goodbye.
No ability to say goodbye. And then Twitter blew up. You're a Twitter guy. I assume that there are a lot of comments made on Twitter.
Well, there are a lot of people that consider him an enemy of their point of view. And Tucker Carlson, I used to enjoy him back in the day when he was a reasonable person, but he kind of went off the cliff here a little bit for entertainment purposes, probably. I don't know if he believes this
he was
stuff.
a focal point in the Dominion suit.
And he's quoted as saying he didn't believe a lot of the representations from Mr. Trump.
You're a lawyer. Do you think Fox is happy that they did not have any of those individuals? Kennedy, Ingram, or Carlson have to testify in open court.
Oh, I would agree with that 100%. I'm surprised it went as far as it did. They were deposed, production requests were met, texts were turned over, and there's some allegation that not everything was turned over. So the judge was going to get involved in the discovery process to see whether Fox held on to some documents.
Now, to be fair, although he didn't get any press at all, in my opinion, but Don Lemon was also fired by CNN.
Yes.
largely because of a couple things. I think his comments about Nikki Haley a couple of months ago.
Right.
But apparently he made some other comment about an Indian American. He says something about his, don't know what your ethnicity is, but this is on a show last week, and I guess that was the final straw.
Right.
And,
Well, you can come up with a variety of reasons to let people go, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the real reason.
let's cut to the quick on both Lemon and Carlson.
Okay.
Do they still have solid careers ahead of them in some way, shape, or form?
Tucker Carlson could run for Congress, I think, if he wanted to.
I suppose that was mentioned yesterday.
The question of why a guy who's a multimillionaire would want to bother with that.
$20 million he's going to be paid the rest of his contract. 4-point-something million viewers.
Right. So how do you replace that at Fox? Maybe they don't care at this point. Maybe they're going to retool. I don't know.
Well, speaking of young upstarts, when we take a break here and we come back, we're going to have Nick Smith, the owner of Alexander's Cafe. He's going to come in and join us and talk a bit about this wonderful restaurant and what he has to offer here.
And we're going to try and get a menu item named after
Yes,
the
we're going to
podcast.
push for that. So we'll be right back. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. Hey, the Kane County Cougars are back for the summer. The best family entertainment around features sunshine, baseball, and fireworks through Labor Day. With great food, entertainment, giveaways, and running the bases after every game, there's something for everyone at a Cougars game. And Thirsty Thursdays feature $2 beer, pop, and hot dogs. And on Sunday, a $15 ticket gets you $15 right back in concession cash to spend at the ballpark. What a deal for you baseball foodies. Come visit us at beautiful Northwestern Medicine Field this summer for your dose of sunshine, baseball, and fireworks. And make your family memories today.
At McNally Heating and Cooling, we understand that customer satisfaction starts with arriving at your home on time. Your service technician will apply the same attention to detail and quality workmanship to every job, large or small. We offer upfront, honest pricing, and we'll make sure the job gets done right from start to finish. From furnace and air conditioning service, minor repairs, or total equipment replacement, we do it all. Give us a call or find us online and let the luck of the Irish work for you.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. You face technology challenges every day that threaten to steal business, compromise data, and bring your business down. Without a good partner to help protect from phishing, ransomware, viruses, data breaches, employee turnover, and cybersecurity threats, your business is at risk of losing everything. TechWorks has been the trusted IT partner to Fox Valley businesses for over 20 years, keeping systems secure and providing extraordinary customer service, helping your business grow. Call TechWorks today at 630-482-2227 or visit www.techworks.com. That's TechWorks with a Q. TEQ works, and see how TechWorks IT service can transform and secure your business.
We're back.
We are back. Yes, indeed, Pat. We are back, and pleased to have as our guest today the owner of this fine establishment, Nick Smith. And I got to tell you before we get started and talk about Alexander's Cafe or any of the other restaurants he's involved in, I want you to know how I got to know this guy initially, and that is he produced the movie Munger Road. And when I was an alderman, I happened to go to the screening of it. About St. Charles, obviously, and quite a feat. And I think he made the city very proud. And I know as an alderman at the time, I was very proud to see this production. The guy's got talent, and obviously he's taken that talent now and he's spread it out into entrepreneurship.
Give us a little bit about Munger Road. What was it about?
Well, I'll let Nick tell us about Munger Road in specific.
I'm sorry, I haven't seen it.
Yes.
My hair was darker. We can start with that. No, when I was 27, I commuted to college from St. Charles. I grew up here, and if you commute to college and you live in St. Charles, there's not necessarily a large cornucopia of options for young people to get into trouble or do things or whatnot.
Yet we still do.
One of the things you can do, though, is venture out to off of Smith Road. There's a road called
Not named after you, by the way.
It's called Munger Road, and so myself and friends, we probably spent easily hundreds of nights going out to Munger Road. It's a urban legend type place with train tracks in Pratt Woods Forest Preserve. If you're driving your car, you put baby powder or flour on the bumper of your car, you stop on the train tracks at night, wait a few moments, your car is actually going to get pushed off the tracks, and if you look at your bumper afterwards, you're going to see little handprints actually in the flour or baby powder.
Wow.
On a train.
Right.
Is there alcohol involved in this place?
No, actually, to be completely honest with you, doing this stunt, and I mean this, doing this is incredibly dangerous because Munger is a fairly open road, and if your car is off and your lights are off, and the car is coming down one way or the other, and if something happens to your car and you can't start it in time or you can't get out of the way, you could have a potential issue there. Now, a lot of people back in 2011 would ask me, Nick, do you believe in ghosts or do you believe this is real? And I always had the same response. When I wrote the movie, I did a lot of research on the city of St. Charles. I didn't know that there were
Underground tunnels.
Did you know that?
So to speak, but I think you did a good job of articulating that in the movie.
I didn't know that. There's a map.
We were Tesla before there was a Tesla.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know anything about Tesla.
There was a very intricate network, and actually some of the businesses I visited, they didn't really want to have it immortalized on a movie, like the funeral home downtown Norris. They actually have a big part of it on their property, but they weren't really interested in being a part of it. But the Hotel Baker does, which we see, which we
Of course,
see
our
in the movie.
guy Smitty got a big role.
I saw the poster.
A scene from Smitty's right there.
The poster of Munger Road, the movie.
So when I was writing the movie, I will say this is fact. So doing research in St. Charles and doing the area, like I said before, that part of Munger Road is in the Pratt Woods Forest Preserve, which is in DuPage County.
Right.
As long as DuPage County has been incorporated, which it's been incorporated for about 120, 130 years or so, every single unsolved murder mystery to ever happen in DuPage County has happened in the Pratt Woods Forest Preserve. Every single one. And when we shot out there for the movie, we shot actually on Munger Road for 3 nights. Each consecutive night, something weirder happened on set. So by the 3rd night, we just were very happy to vacate and say, we got this in the can, let's move on to our next
This is Blair Witch before Blair Witch, right?
It was very eerie. And it is an eerie place. That's all I can say.
Related to the tunnels?
So that is an extension of the movie that the St. Charles and geographically going out to where the Pratt Woods Forest Preserve is possibly connected by underground.
Was it
Prohibition?
railroad?
Yes, and the Underground Railroad.
Because Batavia has a link with the underground.
Right. Well, that's Munger Road, and I thought we'd introduce Nick to the audience.
My whole world is upside down.
Well, you got to watch the movie. I think you'll find it to be very interesting.
think
Now,
I
let's talk a bit about Alexander's Cafe and not only Alexander's, but all the other restaurants in the Keras group as well. And by the way, Pat and I have a request to make before we get it out of Alexander's. We think it would be nice to see just a couple of guys entree on the menu of some sort. We didn't know if it was breakfast or lunch, but probably breakfast.
Brunch.
Brunch. and maybe an Italian-Irish feed.
Combination.
Maybe a nice lobster thermidor or something.
With a cannoli on the side. Something like that. It's a little.
What are you thinking? What would it be?
I'm looking for an omelet of some sort
Want an
myself. An omelet. You only got 4 or 5 omelet choices. A 6th omelet choice would be
I'm
good.
sure Paul, the producer, can get you a couple of caricatures. You seen our caricatures?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That would put those on the menu.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right,
Maybe
but
we
anyway,
can name a drink after you. Right?
You can go across the
now that I'm not
Rockies.
liquor commissioner anymore, that'd be fine. Yeah, I have no
I'll
problem.
have to recuse myself.
Every burger bun at Rookies, you could burn your caricatures into the
Whoa,
bun.
my!
And I will waive royalties.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that right.
You could do
All
that.
right, but let's talk a bit about the different restaurants. And by the way, point of order here: the Carrot Strip has been a fine sponsor of Just a Couple of Guys since its inception, and we appreciate that immensely. Let's talk about the various Carrot Group restaurants.
Yeah, so I'm actually a relative newcomer to the Karras group and the Karras family. They've been around since the 70s, and it started at West Dundee, the Village Squire, 2 brothers, my father-in-law George Karras and his older brother Paul. That's Bob Karras' dad, who passed away a few years ago. They had this idea for the Village Squire, and it's now branched out, all these years later into 15 restaurants all over the Fox Valley area, as far north as McHenry and as far south as Geneva. And there's 4 different concepts or 4 different restaurants. You have Alexander's, which is breakfast and lunch. We have one here in St. Charles, there's one in Elgin.
Right.
Rookies, of course, is a sports pub. There's the original one was in St. Charles here, which was not started by Bob Karras, but was actually, I think, what we know of Rookies, it was started by Bob Karras. I believe he bought it in 1998. It used to be a Ponderosa. And then we have the Village Squire, like I said, those are in McHenry, Crystal Lake, Dundee, and South Elgin and Randall Road. And then we have the Old Republic up in Elgin, right by the movie theater, the Marcus Theater, which is kind of an upbeat indoor-outdoor hub.
Well, Matt and I talked about the Old Republic with respect to sometime during the summer. That'd be a great venue to have Just a Couple of Guys podcast, whether it's on the stage there or just in that old beer garden. That's a great venue.
Amongst the people.
Yes.
Yes, it sounds fun. It sounds fun.
The Old Republic, not to sound like,
Go ahead.
not to sound conceited, in my opinion, is one of the great success stories during the pandemic time that we just kind of went through since 2020, 2021, 2022, because there was such an emphasis on outdoor dining. And people have really embraced dining outside. And to give a little backstory on myself, as we were talking about Karras restaurants in the 70s and whatnot, I actually got my start with another restaurateur in the 70s, Adam Salerno. I worked for the Salernos in St. Charles for 10 years. That's how I learned the restaurant business. That's
God rest
actually
his
why
soul. He was a good man.
He was a good man, and that's why I'm actually in the restaurant business. I learned from them, and anyway, what the old thinking with restaurants was, if you had a patio like this one that's here at Alexander's, or maybe one that you see down the street in downtown St. Charles, to every restaurant person, operator, owner, the patio was, if you sat out there, it was, your service was slower, we don't really care, our primary business is inside. It's going to be a scheduling nightmare. Is the weather this? Is the weather that? How do we get great? How is it just not an extension of what's going on inside?
Right.
For years, that was kind of the thought process with outdoor dining. With the pandemic, I think we all have found out that we really like al fresco dining, and that there's now a renewed emphasis that in the summertime, when it is nice, if you do something a little bit more than just having a patio, an umbrella, and a table, can create some really cool ambiance outside. We've seen it now. We're going to have Whiskey Bend open up in St. Charles, and they've got a wonderful patio.
Beautiful patio.
They're going to debut. That contractor for that patio actually came from the Old Republic. People see it, the Old Republic up in Elgin said, I want whatever they're doing up there, we should recreate it. And so I think that the Old Republic since 2020 has really established in Kane County what outdoor dining can be.
Well, if I may, I think my last year as mayor was a pandemic year. And I would only say this. I think one of the factors that bailed St. Charles out to some extent was throwing that downtown area open to dining.
Yeah.
On First Street particularly, and then it morphed into Walnut Street and a few other places where people could dine on. And as you just said, oh my God, people just loved it, and that's carried over now. Pandemic seemed to be over, and yet we've got all this emphasis on outdoor dining because people do like it, period. And so let me ask you this question. It goes to the whole restaurant industry, and specifically in the western suburbs. I have read in more than one place that people are leaving the city. They're coming to the suburbs. The western suburbs are catching a whole influx of young people. Restaurants are opening here, there, and everywhere. And the theme is, hey, you don't have to go into Chicago to have fun, entertainment, intellectual challenges, etc., etc. Comment on that.
I would agree with everything you just said. I think that, unfortunately for big cities like New York, which I was actually just visiting New York.
Who just, by the way, hired a rat czar. Because of the 2 million rats in the city.
At a very cheap rate, by the way, like $100,000.
Chicago, Los Angeles, which I visited last year as well. I think with the pandemic, unfortunately, you saw a lot of challenges when you have so many people in a dense area, and you're not able to be able to do this as easily. And we have benefited tremendously, not just as a community, especially in the Fox Valley, in terms of being close enough if you want to visit something with historical culture, a museum, or the lakefront or something like that. You have Chicago O'Hare right here if you want to get anywhere in the world. And I think that if you talk to a realtor around the area like Amy Nelson,
podcast sponsor.
They've been busy. They've been busy for the last 2 years. They haven't stopped. And what's funny to me is the narrative has been, if you listen to the narrative, people in droves are leaving Illinois. And we're all saying to ourselves, where? If they're leaving Illinois, why are these homes getting filled? And it's not even taking a day to do it. In terms of our pocket that we have here. And so I think we should be very proud of that. You were a big part of that. You're a part of that as well, in terms of we should be proud that it's not a, geographical issue.
No, I think the Fox Valley in particular, and that's our main viewing audience, is jumping. It's just leaps and bounds. I have no desire to leave Illinois or the Fox Valley, for that matter. Just to your earlier point,
I was just having this discussion. My dad's birthday was on Saturday, and we had him over for dinner.
I saw his picture on Facebook.
Yeah, I like pushing his buttons because he's not 78. He's a little younger than that, right? And we were having this discussion because my wife has, a brother and a sister and 2 sisters that live in Chicago. And I like saying bombastic things, and I said, you could not make a good argument for me right now that why live in Chicago?
Every day in the newspapers here, something is on the front page about a event, a shooting, chaos downtown, whatever.
See, I disagree with all that.
Well,
I go downtown maybe 10, 15 times a year. Never had a problem.
You stay there?
Hotels?
Yeah.
Never had a problem. So I think a lot of this is exaggerated. Now, what we saw a couple weekends ago with the kids and the mob,
doesn't seem to be too
the
exaggerated.
flash mob, that is definitely a problem. More perception than reality.
Let me
It
paint
doesn't happen.
let me paint a different picture. I'm down there during the Christmas holidays in December. Michigan Avenue like a ghost town.
Right.
Ghost town. My wife and I walked up and down there and said, "This is Christmas in the city? Are you kidding me?"
That's probably more a reflection of online purchasing than fear. If you're afraid of Michigan Avenue, then you don't know what's going on.
Well, my wife, my wife is pro Chicago. She lived in Chicago, and she said, and I just went to the Cubs game. They played the Mariners 2 Mondays ago. I stayed at the Hotel Zachary because I wanted to see what they've done. It was terrific. Have you done that yet?
I try to avoid Wrigley Field.
I know, but it is. I mean, if Comiskey Park or U.S. Cellular Field, if they were to do something similar, it would be pretty popular if you could go to a game, literally walk across the street,
That's
have
true.
have a nightcap.
Gallagher Way is really very nice. I can't deny that. The restaurants, the bars, the hotel. It's a nice scene. I can't argue.
But I have a nice car. I just bought it from the GMC dealership on Main Street, Fox Valley GMC. And I guess my question that I'd ask you, and honestly,
I take the train.
Well, if you were to take your car,
Yeah.
I took my car down there and I purposely parked in a parking garage underground. I would not park, let's say in somebody's lot or on the street or whatnot. Now, you could say that about any big city in the United States or whatnot, but to me, I just get this feeling, like Mr. Rovina said, a couple weekends ago with this flash mob. My perception of Chicago changed when you go on Reddit and you type the word Chicago. The second video that comes up is that lady trying to get into her apartment. Have you seen that video? You saw it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Just trying to get into her apartment, right? And almost like wolves, just gets attacked, beaten, and carried away from whatever apartment she was trying to get into. Now, St. Charles is not a perfect place. There's been crimes probably committed every week since I've lived here, right? You would agree with that. However, do I think about getting into my house and having a difficulty getting in there on a Saturday night? It's just not in my conscience. So to pay an exorbitant amount of money to live in Chicago and have these feelings possibly, well, any given Sunday it could happen, it might happen, and whatnot.
I'm not saying I would live in Chicago.
Okay.
But I was
what I was telling my wife. Like, to give you the argument of living in Chicago.
the one thing that would detract me from living in Chicago would be school. You have kids. Private schools are great, but
Isn't that interesting that you would cherry pick the number of times you go in the city a year and say, I'm going to the art museum, I'm going to a ball game, I'm going to whatever, and feel good about it.
Yeah.
But to Nick's point, if you're living down there, no. And not to mention the taxes that just keep stabbing and stabbing and stabbing.
Well, I don't think I would live in any big city if I had a young family.
I think the most important question here is, do you want the Bears to move?
I think it's a smart move for the Bears.
Do you want them to?
Yes.
Just for your own personal.
No, I like the idea that the Bears will have more control over their environment, and that means that they'll have more money, and maybe they'll get better players.
And I like the fact that the majority of the citizenry in Arlington Heights has said, that's fine, they can come out here, but what's the tax bill for us?
Right, exactly.
The Bears are going to pay for this. Oh, that's fine. But infrastructure, we see that all the time.
I've got a 25-year-old daughter, a 23-year-old son. They go to Chicago just about every week. No problem, no incidents whatsoever. The new mayor, we talked about this a little bit, made some comments after the flash mob that were a little frightening. Because I think Chicago with this election kind of doubled down on the woke, these are just kids that are misunderstood type thing. Well, the truth of the matter is, some kids have to go to jail. Some kids need to be punished. Some things are wrong. And we have to be consistent about how we apply the law. Right?
Let me ask this question, Nick, only because we're talking about the national scene and so on. Are there things that are going on in Washington or Springfield, or for that matter, even at the local levels, that have an impact upon your business in a negative way?
Well, I think, I do. I think that, one of the biggest things that, Don DeWitt.
I certainly know the senator, my predecessor.
He comes in here, every once in a while. I get to see him and we chat.
I've seen former mayors come in here once in a while.
Yeah, it's like the official mayor breakfast spot in St. Charles, or unofficial. And one of the things that's really interesting that's going on, and I don't think that this would be on most people's radar, is unfortunately what has happened with unemployment in Illinois, IDES, the Illinois Department of Employment Security. The pandemic wreaked havoc on IDES, and now they are trying to catch up on that. But what happened was, if you go to any restaurant, any business right now, and they were to tell you, if I were to sit here and say, I'm just having a staff issue, I don't have the staff, I can't find people, I can't find work, I would stop that person and I'd say, you do not have a staffing issue, you have a pay issue. 100%. People, since the pandemic, have realized to themselves, whether or not they saw a light or realized that their time on earth is short, and said, hey, I don't want to do this job for $12 an hour anymore. Or if you're willing to pay me $25, I'll maybe consider it. But otherwise, I ain't doing it. Well, now we're kind of in this catch-all in terms of prices, the cost of goods, being able to get goods. The car that I bought from GMC, I ordered it August 2nd of last year. It was finished the third week of February. It was fine. It wasn't like, but if I needed a car, really badly, I would have been a little bit of a pinch. What is going on is not a bad thing. Is we have to take a look at the fair value of somebody's hard work, right, and what they're getting compensated for that. And we're an important part of that in the sense that can we responsibly, have prices that reflect what we want to pay people. Now, McDonald's, as I went to Vegas last week, this is a big deal. This is a bigger deal than I think people realize. McDonald's just opened their first restaurant as a prototype in the Denver area that is all robotic.
All I know is, I can't remember the last time I was in McDonald's or wasn't punching buttons on a screen as opposed to,
See, I don't use that. Because every time you do that, you cost somebody a job.
Well, I'm just telling you what I'm...
From an employment standpoint, I don't use...
But at Resorts World, I didn't have a choice. So if you waited at their food hall, there was no... would you have left?
It depends, I guess, on how I was feeling. But.
So that's it's a tricky thing. We're, bagging our own groceries, having the companies, and as far as, state and federal laws and governing and whatnot, I just think that from a small business standpoint, you're going to see a squeeze, and you will actually see over the next year or two. Unfortunately, that squeeze is going to continue pressing a lot of the businesses that we've known to grow up, or at least that we see every day.
You're going to get to a price point where people aren't going to buy eggs at Alexander's. It's too much, right? So, and you have to pay for the staff at that new wage, so it's difficult.
Hey, one more thing before we finish here today, and that is, you sell alcohol here, correct?
We do. We sell beer, wine,
Bloody Mary.
There's been a flap in the press, and we've read about it as loyal beer drinkers. What's going on with Budweiser?
Yeah, so from my vantage point, of course, I talk to purveyors, and if people don't realize this, when you go into a restaurant and you buy your beer, let's say it's a Miller Lite or Coors Light or Bud Light, Blue Moon, they actually come from different vendors or purveyors that have the rights to be able to sell those beers.
Distributorships.
So they have distributorships. It's a little bit different with liquor. Liquor is actually pretty much split down in the middle, where you only have two companies in Illinois that you're buying, either Tito's or Absolute. But beer is actually more of a family regional distribution, right? And those laws are actually very interesting, and they go all the way back to Prohibition in terms of how that beer distribution works. And so, of course, you had a couple of weeks ago, Bud Light or AB, Anheuser-Busch, they sent a congratulatory case of Bud Light cans to a transgender personality online that we should call an influencer. As an influencer online, basically send products, boost them on their Instagram, TikTok, etc. And this person was celebrating.
Just a couple of guys.
And this person was celebrating X amount of days of changing from a man, born as a man, into a woman. And so Bud Light had put this person on their can, and let's not, I think, be mistaken that Bud Light or AB knew exactly that by doing this or sending this, that they were looking for some publicity. They didn't do this and say, we really just wanted to send you a case. We're actually really excited about you. Hope you enjoy the beer. Go on your life, and thank you so much. They wanted AB and Bud Light's core business. The beer drinkers has been eroding, and it's been eroding for a long time. And so, as a company, they're looking for, okay, how do we get market share? How can we find new people to buy our products? And somebody at AB had an idea, said, well, hey, what if we try something inclusive and send our products to this influencer who's also transgender, and maybe we can get some market share by being friendly and inclusive and whatnot. And of course, that happened, and some of the response online and publicly has been very negative and whatnot. And you have to understand that for people that are, wondering or questioning, why are people so upset, or why is this bothering you? You have to understand that Bud Light, in a way, decided to pick a spokesperson, right? And sometimes this happens with all companies. Sometimes they took the wrong spokesperson in terms of they didn't agree necessarily. Kanye West being somebody saying, hey Kanye, we don't necessarily agree with you being a spokesman for this company, so you're not going to be a spokesman for this company anymore. And so what I think personally from a business standpoint, having a small business, 2 points about this. My first point is that I think that AB made a mistake doing this for a simple fact that the crowd that they're going after, I don't think drinks beer. And while they did that, they are alienating whatever core group of business that they had. And say, hey, who actually drinks beer? Who's our crowd? Well, it's rural America, good old boys, Christian values, etc., etc., etc. Maybe this crowd will drink beer. And I'm guessing, if I'm in charge and saying, well, I'm trying to make the best guess possible for business, I think this crowd, to me, the inclusive crowd, the generation that's coming up right now is the driest generation of all time in terms of alcohol.
Right.
They want mocktails.
Right.
They want premiumization, a good bourbon, a good whiskey, vodka, whatever it might be. I just don't think they're, man, I've never thought about Bud Light, but now I'm going to have a Bud Light. So I think possibly alienating their core, whatever they've had, and trying to go after this group, I think they actually just shot both their foots off, because I don't think this group is suddenly like, oh, great, now we can drink Bud Light. This is great. because we weren't drinking it before. We were drinking Miller Lite. And I think the second point, and I'm okay with this being my own, opinion, and you don't have to agree with me, is I think the person that they chose is fairly obnoxious. And I think that when you have an obnoxious person like Gilbert Gottfried, it's going to turn some people off because they're just obnoxious. And I think that if you look at the transgender LGBTQ plus 2, however many letters there are now, we're talking about 1% of the entire population in the world. 1%, right? I think there's some fatigue from the GP that we've been very bombed by the narrative with the media of LGBTQ. It seems like for the last year or two that I think we've just reached the saturation fatigue. Like, we're still talking about 1% in terms of inclusion and whatnot. And I think that if I was a betting person, if I was guessing, I think that the negative pushback is just fatigue. I think that some people are just fatigued talking about it being up in their, the first thing that they're reading about. That would be my guess.
Right?
Well, the time has flown here today at Alexander's, and I'll tell you something right now. It's not like you sat down and had breakfast all of a sudden. We've been here for a while, and we've had an engaging conversation with a great entrepreneur here in our community. And I say that unabashedly about Nick, not because they're sponsored just a couple of guys. I've known this guy for a long time, going back to again when I was an alderman, and he's been a fine entrepreneur here in this community. He gives back to the community. That's what's most important. So on that particular note, I will say
I enjoy my time here, and it has nothing to do with fame and fortune and the podcast light. And you personally, it's a wonderful place.
but still hoping for an entree on the menu. Just a couple of guys on. So, for my fellow Sox partner, Nick Smith, for our great producer who sat there patiently and took all this in, Paul Stucco, and for my partner here, Pat Kerman, this is Ray Rogina, wishing you all a pleasant day. And outside it looks pretty gray. And saying that we'll see you soon, be safe, so long. Hello friends, this is Ray Rogina. I'd like to say a few words about my friends at the Karis Group of Restaurants, one of our sponsors. I've been a frequent guest at all of their fine restaurants for years, one of which is Rookies, which has locations throughout the Fox Valley and beyond. My favorite dish at Rookies is the Gyros plate with the Saganaki appetizer. Oopa! My wife, she loves the Hall of Fame chicken sandwich. But I can honestly say that I've never had a bad meal there, regardless of whatever I've had to eat. The wings are out of this world, the salads are delicious, great burgers, tacos, all American specialties, and don't forget their pizza. And of course, you can wash this all down with one of their famous Mai Tais. Try them out. St. Charles, Geneva, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Huntley, and Roselle. RookiesPub.com. I'll see you there.